You see that? I'm trying to see.
You're live.
Okay.
Yeah, we're. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons, most with the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And our special guest today is his former defensive partner at Northern Michigan University, but you know him as general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, Don Waddell. Don, welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be with you guys this morning.
What'd you call yourself there, Dr. Don?
I've become a doctor the last 24 hours.
Oh, that's right, too. Yes, I forgot about that.
Well, let's start there. Your game was postponed, and I know you don't like to provide too much information on what's happening with the COVID-19 protocol, but where are you guys at now in terms of moving forward?
Yeah, we're talking with the league as we speak, just to understand what our next steps are. We've had 5 cases, and it's a concern for the health and safety of the players, not only for our own team, but teams you're playing against. So we'll learn more in the next 24 hours here to see where we take this whole thing.
Without telling us, like, obviously who the guys are or anything, what's that whole process? I mean, so everybody's getting tested every day. Is that how it's working?
Yeah, we get tested every morning and get the results back late that night and next morning. So my phone went off. We played, tested Monday morning, played Monday night in Nashville, and about 1:30 in the morning, my phone started beep with the alerts that we had some players that tested positive. So, it's something that up until this point, Jordan Staal is our first case. We went through 2 weeks before the bubble, in the bubble, 2 weeks of training camp or 9 days leading up to the start of the season with never having a case. So unfortunately, it hit us at the wrong time, and now we got to find a way to get through it.
Don, when you were watching NFL games and watching what was going there, and you kind of knew that what you guys were going to do in the NHL's schedule, did you say, that's going to be us in a month or so, and it's probably going to be more difficult because they lost one game. Oftentimes, you guys will lose 2 or 3 if your guys test positive.
Yeah, we obviously we follow what's happening in other sports, and you're hoping that you can minimize this, and then by trying to do all the follow the right protocols, which we felt like we really did, and it's just unfortunate that it hit you, and there is some makeup dates on the schedule that we're going to have to, our schedule is going to get a little hectic at points, but the hope is that we'll be able to make up all these games and not have to cancel.
And one of the ththings leading into the season, Don, was, without, the fans in the stands and all the revenue that comes from that, there's a lot of talk, well, not a lot of talk, but there was some talk about owners saying, man, I'm going to lose less money if we don't play. How was your owner looking at it?
My owner, Tom Dunn, was very supportive of playing from day one. He was very vocal about it, that he felt it was important for us to play. It's true, the big losses by all the owners in the league this year, but I think at the end of the day, what Commissioner Bettman and Bill Daly did to set us up to be able to play through the Player Association, that I think it made more sense for us to play than not to play. The financial side, yes, it's a lot of money, but it's also we felt important for our fans and for the game of hockey to continue to try to not be put off on the shelf for a year and get back to playing hockey.
Don, there are a few places where they can have some fans come in the building. What's your thought on moving forward about might we see more teams allow some fans in the building as we march toward the playoffs?
Yeah, what I said is, this isn't an NHL rule. This is a state-by-state rule, and every state's a little differently. And right now we're allowed 85 fans, more family and friends. But as this COVID gets more under control, which we hope is starting to happen, it's happening in our state right now with more vaccines coming online, that over the next 30 to 60 days, that things do become where you were able to have. I don't see full fans at this point in our situation, but I do think and expect that we'll be able to have more fans as the season progresses.
So people that don't know, Don and I go way back to when we were like 18 years old, 1976. We both were at Northern Michigan University the first year they started the hockey program. And Don I think you were one of the first people I ever saw that went and played on the World Junior team and everything. and we both were drafted. Don was drafted by the Kings. I was drafted by the Rangers. Did you ever, I mean, obviously your dream was to play in the NHL. Did you ever think at that time, like, was there a thought about getting into management like you're doing now?
Yeah, I've always had, even at an earlier age, an inkling for the business side of the sport. And, I didn't know, obviously, I'd become a general manager and then team president and along the way coach teams and all that. But I always thought I would be able to find a job where I'd like to stay in hockey. You shoot for goals, obviously, as a player. But, after my first 3 years of playing, I knew that, I could play. I went to Europe for a while, played in the minors, played my one game against the New York Rangers and Tom Laidlaw in the 1980-81 season. I remember warm up, he's skating around and he asked me, "What the hell are you doing here?"
Really sensitive.
And then I got scored out my first shift by Rod Gresher scored. But anyways, a few years into my pro career, I realized that, that I wanted to stay in the game and I wanted to be a part of the game going forward. And I was very fortunate to be at a young age. I think I just turned 28. I was offered the coach GM job in Flint of the IHL. And I did that for 2 years before going to San Diego and starting that franchise in 1990.
It seems like the NHL, because it's a professional sport, is a large league, but it's really kind of a small world, and a lot of people don't realize that had things gone differently, Don, you could have been on that 1980 U.S. Olympic team as well.
Well, thanks, Kevin. I was fortunate to go to a couple of as Tom said, I played in the first 2 World Junior tournaments with Team USA. Went to the sports festivals 3 years in a row, broke my leg at the one sports festival before my junior year, came back and ended up playing the rest of that year. My senior year at Northern, we started the season off, and I joined the U.S. program and unfortunately got hurt again. Not seriously at that time, but kept me out for a while. And, I understand the Olympic coaches had to make a decision of what they needed to do, and we're talking right at Christmas time now. We're in Lake Placid actually when I got hurt, and as you know, Dave Christian ended up being a defenseman and was pretty much a forward his whole career. So they made that decision when I got hurt, and obviously it was a good decision they made.
So again, we started the program 1976. So I guess you could look at it, we're the worst team in the country at that point. And by our senior year, I'll never forget, right, North Dakota was ranked number 1 in the country, and they came into Northern Michigan to play us. I'll never forget who's the coach of North Dakota then?
Gasparini, probably, right?
He was asked, our rink back then was all the iron miners, right, 3,500 people right on top of them, and somebody asked him, he said, are you going to be intimidated by their rink? He said, no, we don't get intimidated by any rink. Well, we beat them both games, and the crowd was nuts, right? And then we became the number 1 ranked team in the country the second half. I'll never forget, right? Remember, we won the CCHA, and North Dakota, obviously, they'd won WCHA, so they were going to the Final Four. And then Cornell and who else? Was it Dartmouth? It
was Cornell and somebody else out east.
Yeah. So then they had one more team open spot, but we were number 1 ranked team in the country. We had to go play 1 game at University of Minnesota. Remember that, Don?
Oh, it was a beautiful experience for sure.
Yeah.
They forced us into this game, which nobody knew why, but Northern Michigan didn't have as much clout as U of M there.
Right.
And so they put us up there to play a game, and we scored a goal that people still talk about that it never went in. We know it went in. And then the riot started in Minnesota. We somehow got out of there alive because they were not happy with us Yoopers up there beating their team.
That's right. Yeah, that's fun.
I want to turn the conversation a little bit to back to the NHL. Don, obviously you're in a different division. We have the new pandemic divisions, set up to accommodate the fact we have an all-Canadian division, which comes about because it's so hard to cross the border. But it just seems to me that this is a benefit for you for this season anyway.
Yeah, no, when it first came out, they had us in the East Division and back in the Central. We weren't picking our division. You pick a division, you know what ends up happening. We just kept, tell us where we're going to play, and we'll provide it. We'll be ready to go. The East would have been less travel for us with all the New York teams and all that. But our division, you get the 2 Stanley Cup finalists with Dallas and Tampa Bay, obviously winning the cup in our division. So there's no easy divisions. People say there's easy teams. Anybody can win in any given night in this league. So you just got to take care of your own business. Where whoever you're playing, the goal is to obviously first you got to get to the playoffs. And then when you get to the playoffs, now we know to get to the Final Four, you got to advance in your division. So that's going to be our goal as we move forward.
So obviously, I was happy for you last year in the playoffs, but obviously being a Ranger loyalist, were you surprised? Like I hope I say this the right way. I was shocked how not just did you won, I thought you could beat New York, but how well your team played and how much you stopped New York from doing what they wanted to do.
Yeah, New York had our number. They've been pretty dominant against us over the last few years, and so we went into the playoffs. You always got that at the back of your mind, but our best players stepped up, and to win hockey games in the regular season is important, but when you get to the playoffs, you need your best players to be the best they can be, and we had that in Aho and Svechnikov, and our goaltending was very good. We built our team on our defense, and we think our defense is one of the better ones in the league. And I think that series, they really stepped forward, and we played every game as was a desperation game, and were able to get through that series in advance.
Don, you mentioned Svechnikov. Obviously, he's been a premier young player. How good can he be?
Well, you don't want to ever put expectations or just watching what he's done at a young age right now. I watch him every night, and it's just truly amazing. He the other night in Nashville, it was a 2-on-1 with him and Aho, and he made a play to go from his backhand to forehand to feed Aho, who buried it into the empty net. I mean, he's known for a shot. He can shoot, but he's a smart player. And the other thing, there's a couple things that's going to make him the best player can be. He spends as much time at the arena as I've seen any hockey player. After practice, we have a shooting area. He's always out there for hours shooting pucks. He loves to be around the rink, and he's a young guy that how many young Russians at 15 are going to come from Russia and go to Muskegon, Michigan? And Kevin, you and I know what Muskegon, Michigan is all about. So,
yeah.
To me, he's very grounded, very, very polite young gentleman, and I think the ceiling is we don't know yet. He's going to score a lot of goals. I'm going to tell you that he's got that knack. But more importantly, too, and I've been around some Russians over the years, his number one goal, he just wants to win. He wants to be a part of it, of course, but he wants to win hockey games. And, he's loved by his teammates, loved by the coaches, loved by our fans, of course. And, I can't predict how many goals he's going to score in his career or the year, but it's going to be a lot.
Your coach, Rod Brind'Amour, former player, I love the way he coaches. The way it appears is that the players all really enjoy playing for him, but make no mistake, he is the boss, right? But it seems to me that he doesn't make it about him. He makes it about the players. Am I reading that correctly with him?
Oh, 100%. It's don't ever talk. He always says, don't talk about me, talk about the players. And I've worked with a lot of coaches, a lot of great coaches but with Rod is focused. There's nothing in his life that outside his family, of course, that matters, but coaching his hockey team. And, we talk about players and doing this or that. He just says, I'll make these players the best I can, and he doesn't ever give up on players. He can be hard on them, but hard in a way, as you said, the players respect him. His career as a player, as you know, is outstanding. Leader, captain, won cups. He's a guy that this old could say about he's not going to ask anybody to do anything he wouldn't do, but he's still doing the things. He's in the gym every single day.
I know, yeah. They had a picture of him during the what do you call it? At the end of the playoffs here, they had you guys out on the football field or something. He had the shirt off.
Yeah.
So I went right to the gym after that, and I said, you can't be having a better body than I've got. There's no way.
He hates what we call Rod the Bod, but that's
Rod
what but I can't say enough good things. He's such a good person too, and being around him is a real treat. But he just wants to coach hockey.
Dr. Don, as you have up on your thing, now that you know so much about COVID, any predictions on how soon you guys will be back playing again?
No, I'm hoping, we got some calls this week, today with the league and that, we know this. Yeah, we're going to be minus some players, but we know that the schedule is already compressed. We're not going to fit all these games in. We don't want to be playing 4 games in 5 nights. So we want to get back playing as soon as the health officials and all the medical people get together and decide when that could be. But I'm hoping that it's not a long break here.
Sounds good. We're going to let you go now, Don. But before you do, I'm going to tell Tom something that he may not know. He brags all the time about the fact he gets up at 3:30 and starts his workout process, which begins with a walk. He doesn't know that you get up at 4:30 and start yours. So you just get an hour more sleep than Tom does every night.
I probably get more than an hour sleep because he probably goes to bed at 2:00 and gets up at 3:30.
God needs that extra hour of beauty sleep. That's what it is.
That's right. I enjoy my mornings. I like to get a workout in. I like to be at my office, my desk by 6:00 and get the day going. So I enjoy my mornings. If I have nothing going on at night, there's nothing wrong with going to bed and getting some sleep. And let me tell you one quick story about Tom, if you have a minute, since he was talking about hockey before. So he always said when he scored his first goal in college hockey, he was going to go to center ice and break his stick over his head. Well, we waited a long time, by the way. But eventually, when it did happen, we were at home and full house. Hockey was booming at that time at Northern. And he scores a goal, goes to center ice, takes his stick, snaps it over his head. Amazing to watch happen. And I've never seen a Christian brother stick break like that. But it's a story that I've told many, many times because I didn't think he'd ever do it, to be honest with you. And then score was first big thing. But then I was worried that that poor stick was going to get beat up pretty bad, which it did.
No, man, it's funny. I don't know if you remember this. The referee came to me after the game and said, "Listen, I should have called a 10-minute misconduct on you." He says, "But I've never seen that kind of thing before."
That's great.
Lots of great memories.
Yeah, well, Don, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and good luck the rest of the season, particularly with this COVID outbreak.
Hey, my old friend, I'm very proud of you, too. You've done a great job in your career here, building yourself up to where you got now, so great job.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys. Always a pleasure to be with you.
See you.
See you later. That was Don Waddell, the Carolina Hurricanes general manager, filling us in. And, Tom, you and I talked about this before it started, about how it was going to happen. It was inevitable. It was going to be like the NFL, only worse because it was going to be multiple games. And we didn't anticipate that it would happen to our friend Don Waddell of the Carolina Hurricanes.
Well, and you're looking with them. You see, Dallas still hasn't even played a game, right?
Correct. January 22nd, they're supposed to start.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So Don touched on it there. There's a compressed schedule. But what happens is Dallas going to be able to get in there? Like, what if they can't get in their 56 games? I'm sure they've thought of that. Do they then go by percentages for, playoff seeding, or if they make the playoffs at all?
Yeah. Well, I missed that part of the question. I
You're blacked out.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Dallas. So they're going to miss how many games? Like 5 or 6 games, whatever.
Yeah. There's room, as Don alluded to, in the schedule to try to make up these games, but it's going to be hard because teams are going to have to, the series setup it works well, but then, if you got to slot something in the middle of that, teams are going to have to, fly to get there to get in. So, it won't be easy, but, we knew this was going to be a bit aggravating, but it's what you have to put up with if you want to play. And
I'm sure they must have thought of it, but you missed there too. What I said was, what if they can't get in their 56 games? Everybody, let's say, like most other teams get in they must have thought, well, geez, then we got to go by percentages, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they'll have to do, I would guess. I think they're hoping that they'll be able to do it. And, in theory, and I say in theory because we don't know what the distribution will be like, but the more people we get vaccinated, the less likely it is we'll have, this we get closer to herd mentality. But they feel like they need 100 million people. Well, we're not even close to that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we got a schedule right on that.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll get moving on that. And it's probably one of those things. And again, I don't know this, but logic tells you that, things always start out a little bumpy, but as you gain momentum and you figure it out and you get a system in place, you can sort of make up. And maybe that's what they're hoping, that, as we get going over the next month here, we'll start to get more and more people vaccinated.
Yeah. They had a big brawl in Detroit the other night there too.
Well, yeah, it was interesting with because Dylan Larkin and Zach Werenski, who grew up together, knew each other. Dylan actually left tickets for Werenski's family, who was from Detroit, to see the game, and they end up battling behind the net. And interesting. And I didn't see the Zoom calls, but I read about them. Werenski was very lighthearted about it, and saying that he won the fight because he thought he didn't get hit as much. That was it. That was his take on it. But Dylan Larkin was very perfunctory about it. Like he, was serious about it. Those things happen. He said, we're trying to win. And he's a new captain.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He didn't want to make light of it. He said we're friends, but these things happen and boils over, and we'll be fine. And he left 4 tickets the next night for the Werenski family. So there's
that's a big moment for Dylan Larkin, right? He's not known as a fighter. He now is that, like you mentioned, he's the new captain. And that's, I think, pretty smart by him to not make it lighthearted, to really be serious. Say, listen, I'm the captain. I'll do anything to help this team win, if it means I have to fight my best friend. So that's a big moment for him. That was a good job by him. I like that.
That wasn't his first fight, though, which he pointed out, but we all knew anyway, because we've seen him before get fired up. And I think that was one of the things that he did that made people think, he could make a good captain, because he was willing to do whatever it takes. I meant to bring this up with Donnie, but even now that he's gone, Don Waddell, he has one of the most unique stories, and he will tell the story better than I will. But he played only one game in the NHL, and that was against the New York Rangers, and he never got his jersey, and he was disappointed by that he didn't get his jersey. Because he has a large collection of jerseys from where he played, and he played in a lot of different minor league stops and over in Europe, but he didn't have that. And 1 year before Christmas, his lovely wife went on a search for the possibility that she might find that jersey. And it just so happens that there was the Los Angeles Kings, I guess, allow one person out there to kind of sell all the jerseys and whatever. And lo and behold, he found it. Now, it required some detective work because other people had worn it. But they were able to piece it together, and they actually did find Don Waddell's one jersey, and she gave it to him for Christmas.
And it was actually, I knew the story. I knew she found a jersey, but it was actually the game-worn jersey.
It was the one he wore, and they verified that. They were able to find it. Now, if you think about it, that actually makes sense, because the guy who was selling them, Don Waddell, would not have been a hot.
Yeah, that's true. We'll ask him for a second. Yeah. But you're right, he wouldn't have been a hot commodity.
No, right. Nobody, and so no one had purchased that jersey, and so they were able to find it. So now he has a complete collection of jerseys that he wore from every team he played for. And like I said, if you go to Hockey DB, he played for quite a few teams, scattered throughout the minor leagues and so forth.
That is a good story. It is funny, but we were talking about it, I think, before the show, right? Where so he didn't play a whole lot that game, and I think it was his first shift. Ron Greschner was a great stick handler. Like, he beat a lot of people, made a lot of people look bad. So, and I'm sure Donnie was pretty nervous too. So he steps on the ice for his first shift, and Greschner goes down and scores, goes around and scores. And we were laughing on the bench because I think Greschner said something to me like, "That's your best buddy, right? He's not too good defensively." I think Greschner's got a pretty good sense of humor. But I didn't remember, and Don tells a story that during warm-ups we were skating around, and I looked at him and I go, I think I used some other language. I said, "What the heck are you doing here?" Which wasn't really too nice a thing to say. I should have been like, "Wow, geez, good to see you, Don."
Well, Tom, give us a peek behind the curtain a little bit for those who never played at a high level, who are, when you're looking at the lineup that you're going to play against, would a guy like Greschner, look and say, "Oh, look, they got a rookie playing," and take note of that? And when you have the puck and you see him in front of you, you do a little more, or do something that will allow you to get in and score a goal?
Definitely, yeah. They'll look. So you look at your lineup, the other lineup, for a lot of reasons. Do they have a real physical lineup? And you say, oh, geez, I'm going to have to play against those guys all night to keep your head up. You got to move the puck quick. All the skill players, like you go play against Edmonton, you're hoping that one of their skill guys is out of the lineup. So yeah, most coaches do a pretty good job too of going through that lineup and really pointing things out. Especially when you played a while. Like guys who got traded, they know the tendencies of those other players that maybe they played with. I'll never forget, James Patrick was a really intelligent player. And who was it? I think it was Kevin Dineen. I'll never forget. So James Patrick said for the first time he played against Dineen, and I think James had played with him or against him in the World Championships or the Olympics or something. And I've never said, James said to me, he says, watch out, he's got this one certain move. And I was like, by that time I'd played a few years. I was like, that's fine. I can handle anybody, So the same move that James told me about, he pulled on me and beat me. And it was funny to come back to the bench like, oh, God, it was one of those moments where I've got a little bit too cocky out there.
The move was pretty good then, I think.
Oh, it was really good. I think it was like he was a smaller guy, not really small, but he was really strong too. And I think there was something to do, like he would kind of pull it back and like bump you off the puck with his shoulder. And I remember when he was doing it, like the second it happened to us, like, God, I should have listened to James Patrick. But yeah, it is interesting about that though, that you go into the game really, especially after you played a while, or players have played a while, and there's a kind of a book on them, the little things they do. The Islanders had this great play too, and it was really tough to defend against, where Dennis Potvin, if he get the puck in his own end off a face-off, and Mike Bossy would take off up the ice, and Dennis Potvin would pass it behind him, so it would go off the boards, and then Bossy would skate into it. And it would kind of like, you would get tricked as a defenseman into thinking, okay, that's a bad pass, I'm going to step up and intercept it. But he was smart enough to fire it really hard and far enough away that you couldn't get it as a defenseman. So if you stepped up on it, now Bossy's going the other way. So it was really important that you knew they had that play. But they were smart too. Like, they didn't run it all the time. They had that play, they'd run it for a few games, and then they wouldn't run it. So if you weren't paying attention, you get yourself in trouble. There's a lot of little plays like that now that you come to think about it.
Well, there must have been a lot of not paying attention, because Bossy had like 9 consecutive 50-goal seasons.
It was we had this great game, the 84 or 83 playoffs, where we went to overtime and Kenny Morrow scored. And I was out there against Bossy all the time. Herbie wanted me played against Bossy. And there's this one goal he scores where I stepped up, I had the puck, it bounces. I'm trying to he's right there. So I'm thinking, I don't want to hold on to the puck here. I just want to move it really quick. So as soon as I move, it bounces off his shin pads. And then he goes in and scores. He had that knack where, like, he would do things, and obviously it wasn't just luck. He was a lot like Rick Middleton, where the puck was bounced in their way, and you're thinking he's just lucky. And then you think, well, yeah, he's done it for 15 years like that, so it's really not too lucky. But
no. Well, we talked about that perhaps Ron Gresham singled out Don Waddell as being an inexperienced player and was able to beat him quickly and score a goal. I think Mike Bossy, this is my theory anyway, I've never asked him about it, but always
I want to hear this question that Kevin's frozen here.
Mobile.
We'll say that again. We lost you for a second.
Oh, okay. In that era, every team seemed to have one defenseman that was a little less mobile than the other defenseman on the court. And I always felt that Mike Bossy singled that guy out. And he'd get a step on him, and then he'd roar by him on the outside. You don't see that now, but it happened pretty regularly in the 80s. You'd beat guys to the outside and then cut in, and he'd get that step on the guy, and then he'd be in alone, and he buried it like he was money once he got inside the dots.
Right, a lot of credit needs to go to Al Arbor too, right? Because the coach then now knows, especially at home, those matchups, right, to get Mike Bossy out there against those kind of players. And it's funny you mentioned that too. There's guys like Brad Marsh was a good example of that, where he's a really valuable player and a hard-nosed, gritty guy, a leader and everything. But yeah, he wasn't fleet of foot. There was a few guys, like Vic Zombo, those kinds of guys who were great players, like really good team players and everything. But yeah, the speed wasn't part of their game. So.
Well, it's funny. I was going to say every team had a Brad Marsh, but I was trying to be kind because I liked Brad. Brad was a terrific hockey player. He just wasn't fleet of foot.
And I agree with you totally. But and those days, and you're right, it's changed now. but those guys were still great players, right? It's just that they were just like, in fact, I look at it that he got a lot out of his career. He wasn't the most talented guy. He just was a great competitor and a smart guy on the end.
Well, I'll tell you a story about skating and how it changed my perspective. As a writer, you often write things like, or at least I did, and early in my career, that this guy was a poor skater, or and so forth. And then one time I was watching, sitting in the stands, I had interviewed someone, and Bob Rouse of the Detroit Red Wings had come out, and he had been injured, and he just was going out for a skate. And he, was one of those guys that people said, is not a good skater.
Right. Yeah.
And he went out and was doing laps around the rink. And I'm sitting there watching him. And, with one guy out on the ice, he was flying around there.
Yeah.
Just ripping it up, just going round and round and round. And as I watched him, I made a mental note. I am never, ever going to call an NHL player a poor skater, because to get to the NHL, you have to be an excellent skater. Yeah. But once you get there, there are guys who are faster than you. But he is not. He wasn't a poor skater. So you can say a NHL player is a below average skater, or something of that nature. But you can't call them poor skaters. They wouldn't be there. If you put any of the Brad Marsh, put him in a senior hockey game in Canada, which is pretty high caliber, a lot of NHL players who play senior hockey and that sort of thing. Like he would have looked, like he's Yvan Cournoyer.
Stick handling and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, exactly.
It is funny you say that too. So it's kind of like, compared to your peers, he's not as good a skater. I'll never forget my second year in the league when Herb Brooks brought Rare Ruotsalainen over, especially on Herbie's practices. Right, we had this drill where Herbie pulled the nets in a little bit, and he'd have to skate around the ice 3 times in 45 seconds. So we're doing it, and Rare Ruotsalainen, he didn't quite lap us in the third lap, but it was pretty close. And we actually, it's funny because we learned from him. Like we would try to cut around the corners really tight. We'd actually slow ourselves down to get around the corner. Well, he was smart. He kept going with the long strides, going wide around the corners, so he kept the stride going all the time. So we finally figured that out, and it wasn't quite as bad. But you're right. I mean, there was a huge difference. As much as I was a pretty good skater because I'm in the NHL. He was an exceptional skater, right? There's a world of difference between him and everybody else.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, and this really dates me because it was the 60s. There was a tennis shoe, the PF Flyers, and when you had them, everybody said you were faster. They were good tennis shoes and all that. And it's just like with skates as well. Tacks. I remember when I was a kid, if you had tacks, you're faster. Well, what I remember from the 1970s, when it was the long hair era, it always seemed that when guys had long hair flowing out of their helmet, they were faster. Like the fastest guys had the longest hair. That's what it seemed like.
So, they speak fast, and the look. It was, remember Mike Madonna with the jersey? Like his jersey would like flap. I was the first guy I think I saw that. I don't know if he did that on purpose, had the jersey a little bit bigger or whatever, but I remember that, and I was like, wow, he looked faster. He was fast anyways, but he looked even faster because he's flapping in the wind there. It was good. All right, we're having a hard time with Kevin today there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. I haven't had this problem in a while. But I agree with you about the flapping jersey. Roenick also was a jersey flapper. And I, for sure, I mean, I've done a couple books with Jeremy and know him pretty well. And that was I don't want to call it a strategy, but they were keenly aware that the jersey was flapping.
And that kind of stuff does work, right? I mean, there's that psychological game where you see this guy and you think, especially if you're a defensive defenseman and you see this guy coming at you and his jersey's flapping and everything, geez, man, this guy's fast. I mean, watch Connor McDavid now. I mean, he beats defensemen before he even gets there just by who he is and the way he skates, right? You're backing in already. So it does work. Yeah,
no, I it's the psychological aspect of the game, just makes a lot of sense. We've run a little bit over, but I wanted to, before we go, talk to you a little bit about the Vegas Golden Knights, who tonight will go for their 4th straight win. And I wanted to bring them up because, boy, it sure seemed in the offseason there was a lot of criticism of Kelly McCrimmon, their general manager, about how he handled things. I thought it was ridiculous that they ended up with both goalies. They're spending too much money on having both Leonard and Fleury. I didn't like how they handled everything. As much as I love the signing of Pietrangelo, giving up Nate Schmidt seems like you didn't get the full benefit of it. If you could figure out a way to have signed Pietrangelo and keep Nate Schmidt, although I admitted that I would certainly trade Pietrangelo or acquired for giving up Stastny and Nate Schmidt. It makes perfect sense. Now, saying all that, let's move forward. I've watched them. I've stayed up. I've watched the later games. Boy, they look like they got all the elements. Their goaltending is sharp. Their defense. Pietrangelo's making a huge difference. Like he's done for the defense, in my opinion, what Stone did for the offense. He sort of brought it together, tied it all together, and now they look like a formidable bunch. Like they're going to really push the Colorado Avalanche as we consider what team is going to emerge out of the West.
And that says a lot for the players, I think, too, right? Because the things I was concerned about, just like you touched on, like the Marc-Andre Fleury, right? He was the number one goaltender. Now, what are they going to do with him? Supposedly they tried to trade him. They couldn't trade him. They were getting what they wanted for him. There's the rumors that Pacioretty was getting traded. And my concern was, okay, is that locker room just going to fall apart? Or guys going to start hating each other in there? But to me, that says a lot about the leadership group in there, particularly Marc-Andre Fleury, his situation. Pacioretty, a former captain with the Montreal Canadiens, he appears that he's handled it well. So, listen, I agree. I still don't think they did the right things during the summer. I don't think they handled things properly. But to their credit, they've got a lot of character guys: Stone, Pacioretty, Pietrangelo, all leaders, right, in the past. Marc-Andre Fleury, the way he handles things. So that says a lot about the locker room. And you're right. I don't think our criticism was wrong during the summer, but they are really a team that, to me, it shouldn't be a surprise, really, but not just the talent that they have, but the character in that locker room. So, yeah, they are the real deal.
Well, and now they're in the middle of, and this is pandemic hockey, they're playing the Arizona Coyotes, the game 2 of a 4-game set, 2 in Vegas and 2 in Arizona. Like, this is, did we turn into baseball? Like a 4-game series against the Coyotes?
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. The rivalries.
I love it.
Right? Yeah.
So it is good stuff. Anyway, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Check out my podcast also on Tuesdays and Thursdays with Bob Duff. We're on hockeydebates.com. And Tom, tell us about where you can find this podcast.
Yep, you can get the radio version of this show at radio.co 365 Sports. Again, that's at radio.co 365 Sports. And Kevin's also on. You can go watch, you can read his writings on hockeybuzz.com. So doing a lot of good stuff. Keep busy.
Yes, I am. It's it's a great season already, and we're only 4 games in.
Yeah, definitely. All right. See everybody on Monday.